Welcome back. It's late afternoon, Sunday the 11th of June, 2023 here in the Gilbertson Aero Factory. I hadn't planned on doing any building today. Instead, I was just going to spend some time researching what's required to do the inverted fuel system modification. I've decided I can go ahead and do a little bit of work. There's a little bit of fabrication that has to happen. It's hot out here. A little bit of fabrication that has to happen. A little trapdoor needs to be created here, and then also a little anti-hang-up bracket, very simple, needs to be created. So I figured I'd come out and just get started on those for maybe an hour or so, and maybe when we get into the time lapse, I'll explain a little bit more about what those parts are and their purpose. That's enough intro, I think, for today. The heat is killing me, so we're just going to get on with the plane building business.
Well, turned out to be 3 hours. No surprise there. Both of the parts I made 1.5 times, I guess I would say. To start, I'm just going to work on making the angle anti-hang-up bracket. If you look in the top section of that red box, it's a little angled piece, and then later I'll be making that trap door. The instructions are really more like suggestions, and it's left to you to kind of figure it out. The purpose of that little trap door is that I think that when you're doing high G maneuvers, it prevents fuel from rushing out of that inner bay. It will, flop closed and prevent fuel in mass from rushing out of that inside bay. And then when you go inverted, you're sitting there with an empty bay, even though the flop tube might be, going to the upper portion of the tank. So, the piece of it's sort of a little strap. It's just a single piece of 25 thousandths aluminum that you make that anti-hang-up bracket for. And it's what it sounds like. There are two of them that you make in two different locations in that first bay to prevent the flop tube from getting hung up when it moves around, when you're flipping upside down in the airplane and doing negative G's. It took a little bit of figuring to get those angles because it's not a straight line between the two pieces that you're connecting. So basically, I took one tab on the place where I wanted it on the web of that spar, and I bent it to 135 degrees, which may sound strange. It's the complementary angle to 45 degrees. And then found where it landed on that stiffener where I was going to attach it to, and it marked that point. And then between the two points, the line that I marked there and the bend that I made a 90-degree twist in the piece, so that then the piece would be able to fit flush with the stiffener that was attached to, and then another 135-degree bend, and whatever. Basically, I just cut a 1/2-inch wide strip of 1/2-inch aluminum and made that. It worked out. And here you can see it in place after I spent 20 minutes looking for the drill chuck for my air drill. Never did find it, and then of course later I found it exactly where I put it so that I wouldn't lose it. So there you go. Maybe this makes a little bit more sense what I said about those angles. And I just riveted them in with an AN470 3/32 rivet, which is actually kind of weird to have, but I think that I had some left over from a practice kit, because I don't have any for the the airplane kit. I just happen to have a little jar of them, I think maybe from a practice kit or the Vans sign or something like that. So here you can see that this is experimenting, trying to find different ways to rivet in that close space, and it turns out that the squeezer actually does fit here. And then comedically in a minute you'll see me trying to see if I can fit the yoke of the squeezer through that little hole. I cannot, but it was easy enough to buck. So while we see that in the bottom left, you see that hole right there. That's where the trap door will go, so that it will prevent fuel from rushing out of that chamber and leave you in a world of hurt if you're doing negative G's and on the way to that, that emptied out. So got that riveted in, and I think, yeah, making that trap door is a bit of weird cutting on some piano hinge, because you cut a portion of the hinge that the trapdoor is going to affix to, but then also you leave like an angled tab off of there that you fold back to act as a stop. So when the flap door goes up, it has a limited range of travel. And this part of the hinge I did twice, because the first time I did it, I wasn't happy with that tab. It wasn't robust enough, so I made a second one. This is not the good one, but the one that you'll see me riveting to the airplane is the correct one. And I'll probably end up having to buy another one of those $10 bandsaw blades, because that hinge pin is stainless steel, and even though it's only 1/8 of an inch, or 3/32, it probably chewed up that blade pretty good. So getting this thing fitted, it didn't come out perfect. It doesn't seal that hole. It just prevents a whole bunch of fuel from rushing back into the outer bays. I don't want it to be perfect. I still want a path for fuel to flow, and the worry would be that if for some reason that thing got stuck in the down position, I don't want it to seriously impede the flow of fuel coming into that bay from the outer portions of the wing. At the bottom of that rib, there is a pretty wide opening. You'll see that there's not the top of the rib, but the bottom of that rib flange, and that's on purpose so that fuel and water can flow to the inner bay, to where that quick drain is, where the sump is. But I do get this all drilled on. I used you see me clamping it here, and then I've got a right angle drill that made it pretty easy to get through that thing. And I think that when I was riveting this on the second rivet, I don't know, it came up just a little bit of a twist, and so like I said, it's not a completely flush fit on there, and which is actually kind of what I wanted. I mean, there's maybe like a 32nd of an inch on the side that's not covered. Anyways, I'm not even sure if I'm making sense when I explain that. Long story short, I don't want to keep fuel from getting into that bay if that door were to get stuck for some reason. There you go. Attaching the piano hinge to the little trapdoor plate that I made, it's just 1 1/4 inch by 1 1/4 inch piece of 25 thousandths aluminum. And I'm using that deburring tool to manually, it's all manual, I suppose, but to countersink those holes just a little bit on the hinge so that I can use the 1097 rivets, which have a pretty shallow countersink to them, so that I can still use flush rivets to mount that. Otherwise, the thing would really be bumping up against the spar of that flange, and that worked out fine. So as you can see me getting that riveted in there, you can see that tab sticking out. In its current position, that won't prevent the door from coming up. The door will completely miss it, but it's out there for a reason. I put the stainless steel pin that holds the hinge together, I put a 90-degree bend in it where that occurs, and so once this is all riveted together and I mount it, I'll slide the pin in there right here and then twist it up and then bend. You see I bent the tab around the pin, and there you go. It all worked out. So not a bad day, not a short day, but good enough for me. I think it looks good.